Right, for my next video, it's time to return back to some technical shiz again. So moving away from gameplay videos. I've received quite a nice little package this week, and it is another scaler, line doubler. But this is reported to be for retro gaming anyway, so anything that's based on a console like PlayStation 1, some PlayStation 2 games, Saturn, Super Nintendo, Mega Drive, Neo Geo, PC Engine, etc, 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 that kind of era of video games. So it's anything that basically outputs a 240 lined image. So naturally, if you connect it to a CRT, it will give you your natural scan lines. It's a scaler called an XRGB. I'm sure many of you have heard of these or come across them, and certainly the people that haven't, and this will be an interesting video, hopefully, for you guys. Right, XRGB has been around, or the brand has been around for a number of years, I think since sort of late 90s. And basically they were bought out by the Japanese to get around the issues that we currently have, and some of the videos I've been showing now, of how to get an appropriate retro console displayed correctly or really well on a computer, PC monitor, or obviously currently now LCDs and plasmas. Now also I've shown you various videos before about scalers and so forth. I suppose what's been the problem before really with a lot of scalers that are on the market, and this is the only, yeah, it's probably fair to say that this is the only one that does what it actually does as regards to these 240p images, is that with scalers you currently buy, and it doesn't seem to matter how much you spend on one, they have something called a halo or ringing effect, which sounds rather nasty and sounds like you should be going to the doctors, but it's basically when you look at an image, it's actually the same for your TVs, for your LCD or plasma TVs. If you plug in a console direct via RGB SCART, for instance, you get a sort of slightly murky picture. It's not pin sharp as what you'd expect it to be or what you'd want it to be like. That can be decreased by varying amounts depending on what type of scaler you use. And the XRGB scaler engine is pretty unique because it can actually reproduce the original RGB image at 240 lines, and it will line double it to 480, so you get a fairly decent image. But the major benefit is the scaling engine that these types of devices use, where you get absolutely virtually zero ringing or zero halo effects, which looks absolutely mint on an LCD monitor, for instance, where it's fairly important that the signal you provide it, because you're basing your image upon pixels, that everything is absolutely pixel perfect. This is what the XRGB will do for you. There's various versions of XRGB. I have managed to get hold of an XRGB 2 Plus. It was bought out in around about 2002, which does beg the question, if you go out and buy a scaler now, why the hell don't they use similar technology? I don't know why. I really don't know why, but certainly XRGBs are heralded in the retro gaming circles as being the best line doubler that you can buy, really, you know, as regards to getting quality, picture quality wise. There are issues with them, with incompatibility issues with certain monitors and all that sort of shiz. It's never straightforward, is it? But they're developed by a company called mofo. They're only available in America. Sorry, they're only available in Japan to buy brand new. You can't actually get these units anymore brand new. The XRGB 2 Plus, they've stopped making them. They've since replaced it with a later version called XRGB 3, which enables you to do other things. But for pure retro gaming, the XRGB 2 or the XRGB 2 Plus will give you the benefits that you need. Another good thing about the XRGB is that it is one of the few scalers, if not the only scaler, that not only line doubles crystal clear clarity, but also doesn't induce any processing lag. I haven't really gone into this in great detail over recent videos, but basically every time that you try and do something with a video image, you try and process it, whether you're line doubling it, scaling it, whatever you're doing, you add a lag, which is the time it takes, in essence, for the signal to enter the scaler or the line doubler, for it to be processed, whatever the scaler does to the image to clean it up, and for it to be output and fed to your TV screen, your monitor or whatever. And of course monitors themselves can also process the image, which actually increases the lag. Anyone that's into the shooters and games that are quite timing specific, like fighting games, beat 'em ups, will appreciate that lag is an absolute no-no. It really is. And this is perhaps the best line double or scaler interface that actually provides I say no lag, but it is virtually no lag. I mean, it's like microseconds. It really is really quick. It's probably one of the quickest, if not the quickest on the market that you can still get hold of today, even after all these years. It's quite amazing, really. Another bonus of the XRGB from the version 2 onwards, so that's the 2, the 2 Plus, and also the 3, is that they have been, up till recently, the only device, all-in-one device, that you could buy that would emulate scan lines. Now I know the SLG 3000 has been released and it's a fantastic bit of kit, but up until that came out, the XRGB range of line doublers and scalers were the only devices you could ever emulate this CRT effect. So they've always been renowned as being sort of the daddy, really, as regards to that type of hardware. Obviously with the SLG 3000 now, it's slightly less of a benefit, because the SLG 3000 will work with any scaler you've got now to add scan lines. But as an all-in-one unit, it is still perhaps the best for image quality, if you're really anal about your image quality, and also if you want scan lines built into it as a facility. So that's the three major plus points, really. Let's look at what the XRGB 2 Plus looks like. It's an amazingly small product, actually. I don't know why, but after looking at some of the pictures on the internet, I just imagined it to be a hell of a lot larger, but the actual box itself is quite small. Right, you have various things inside it. Something else I forgot to mention is that the XRGB range of line double scalers natively take in a SCART RGB format, which is fairly rare in itself, but obviously from the aspect of retro gaming, it is an absolute prerequisite, really. Certainly as most consoles, or nearly all consoles, have got SCART RGB output. Now the only thing is because this is a Japanese device, to further confuse the situation, Japanese SCART RGB is wired differently than the European SCART RGB, and if you actually plug in a European device into one of these scalers, it will effectively blow the input, it will knacker the input up. So I mean, these devices full stop are rare. You've got more chance of finding some rocket or shit than you have of finding one of these devices. You really have. They don't come up on eBay that often, they certainly don't come up on the forums very often, and if they do, they're not particularly cheap. I didn't pay a massive amount for this. It wasn't dirt cheap considering the age of it, but it cost me £125, which in comparison to the other scalers that you can buy that are out there that do the same job or a similar job for the retro 240p signals, it is a cheap option in effect, because it does do a hell of a lot. It does a lot more than what most of the other scalers do out there. But it's not a cheap device. I mean, you can end up paying, I don't know, anywhere between £150 and £200 for this model. So it was a fairly decently priced sale, to be fair. But yeah, so going back to the SCART inputs, like I said, the Japanese SCART is wired differently. So if you plug a Super Nintendo, for instance, that has been wired with a Euro RGB SCART connector, it will blow the input on this device. So you can't do that. What you have to get is a converter, and this has actually got one with it. It doesn't come with the package because they're sold in Japan, but you can get them made up there fairly easily to get hold of. So the actual device itself is fairly small. I don't think I've got anything to actually hold it up against. But if we look at an Xbox 360 game case, and it is actually, if I hold that up, it is fairly small, really. Especially if you compare this to a DVD-O Edge that I've done a bit of a discussion about. I showed it as well. And also one of the other scalers I've got, which is a Cinematech picture optimizer line double scaler. I mean, that's a massive unit. It's like a full-size MIDI size unit, but this is a hell of a lot smaller. So we have a SCART RGB input at the front, and we've got left and right audio input if you want to use those for something else. We've got something called a D terminal input, which is something that's only used, I think it's only used in Japan, it's certainly not used over here, but that is also an RGB input. You've got various buttons on the front to do various things, and on the rear of the device we have a D sub 15, so that's a VGA type connector going in, because it will actually pass through a VGA signal. It won't process it, it will just pass it through, but with limited resolution capabilities, so it's pretty worthless by today's standards anyway, certainly. And it's got a D sub 15 Super VGA type connector out, so that will connect straight to an LCD monitor, straight to a plasma. You've got various other inputs on there where you can feed it a nasty composite video input if you want to. I wouldn't recommend that. You've got Super VHS input, so obviously that's better than composite but not as good as RGB, and you've got the appropriate audio inputs as well. You've also got a line in and a line out, so what you can do is that you can feed it a SCART RGB input, which will have audio, should have audio connected, and off 3.5mm jack out, you can actually feed the audio into an amp or whatever you want to do. So if you want to get audio out, you can splice it fairly easily by using this unit. So that's the XRGB 2 Plus. There. You get a nice remote control with it as well. You can actually do everything that you need to do as regards to getting full access to the menu via the buttons on the front, so you don't need to use a remote, but you've got a remote if you need to use one. Now, because this is a Japanese unit as well, you have a Japanese power adapter, which is a 12-volt power adapter, so that plugs into the back of the XRGB. And obviously, because it's Japanese, it's a two-prong affair, so you need to use step down with that if you're using it outside of Japan. Or certainly in the UK you need to use step down, because we've got 240 volts, this will take 110, so it will blow it if you try and put that straight to the magnet. Not it will fit anyway, but and you get some leads. Now this is the lead that you don't get if you do pick up an XRGB unless it's already included, so you don't get this out of the box as such as a brand new part of the package. This is a Japanese SCART RGB converter to a European SCART RGB converter, so certainly from the south this is an absolute must. I need this, and I could never plug an RGB SCART Euro connector straight to the front of this because it will knacker it up. And again, when you see them on on places like eBay forums, it is one of the first questions you ask: is the front SCART socket blown, or does it still work? Now you get a couple of conversion leads for it. I mentioned previously about the D connector at the front, and this is the lead that plugs into it. So it goes from the connector, from that weird connector that's on the front, to an RGB input. So you can feed that. So for instance, if you're using something like a PlayStation 2 that has got component output ability, you can use a component lead to plug into this. Something this XRGB won't do is actually take and handle a progressive picture other than 240. So it won't take a 480p progressive picture, which is what the PlayStation 2, Xbox can output, Xbox 360, whatever. This particular version of the XRGB won't accept that input. The later version, the XRGB 3, will. So if you've got to deal with that kind of input and you want to get the best picture, well you actually want to deal with that kind of input, this isn't the device for you. You need to look at the XRGB 3. Something else as well here is a similar input actually to the D terminal input, which is doing RGB. You can also do RGB via the SCART input. Now obviously, because RGB isn't region specific, if you're using component inputs or RGB inputs, you can just plug this straight to the front of the XRGB and then plug in your RGB inputs, your photos into that. You've also got audio left and right on there, so that basically covers what your existing SCART Euro connector would do. And something else I didn't get the box but I already had anyway is a line out lead, which is obviously the jack, 3.5mm jack I talked about before, so that plugs into the back. That gives me audio out left and right that I can feed into an amp. So that's the sort of complete solution really. I suppose with any of these videos that I do on YouTube about these scalers, it's very difficult for me to get over to you guys on a video in decent quality the actual differences between the scalers. Excuse me. And I doubt very much whether or not you'd actually be able to pick up the differences, you know, between the XRGB, the DVD Edge, the cheap eBay scaler, Cinematech scaler, etc. So I won't even bother trying to attempt to actually show you what it looks like. But trust me, I mean, do some do some research on the internet if you want to. But it is absolutely assert that the picture quality itself, assuming you can get a stable picture, because these devices can be a bit quirky. I haven't had a problem. I've tried it with nearly all my consoles so far and I've had one problem with it. But the picture quality itself is absolutely mint as regards to the sharpness, and once you apply scan lines via the actual device itself, so not using SLG 3000, you don't need to anymore, you can just use that device. It looks absolutely awesome, it really does look great. Like I said, the actual added benefit of it is the fact that there is absolutely no lag, certainly nothing you could pick up yourself, and as a gamer of someone that's into shoot 'em ups, etc., you do tend to notice that. You can notice it with other types of scalers and line doubles, but with the XRGB you don't get that. I did have a quick blast. Well, I say quick blast, I had a fair amount of time spent on this yesterday with PlayStation 2 via RGB SCART, and actually playing a game called Harmful Park, which was released on the PlayStation 1, so it's a native low-res game. And on my LCD monitor, with the scan lines enabled and the XRGB, it looked I mean, it really did look awesome. Another good thing about the XRGB is you've got real great control over the colours, and it's so vivid. It really does look like a CRT. The emulation just looks absolutely great, it really does. So as far as I'm concerned, I'll give it an absolute thumbs up. There is one downside to it as regards to the XRGB2, Plus is the fact that you get a very slight sort of shimmering on the picture. It's basically the way that the internal line doubling engine works, so the way it processes the image or reprocesses the image, and you get this slight shakiness. If you're at a gaming distance, you can't notice it, but if you're anal, like I am when I first get things like this, you're at the screen with a flipping microscope and you're looking at stuff on the screen, you're comparing it, and you can see a very slight shimmer. But like I said, if you're playing at gaming distance, you don't notice it. You really don't notice it. But it's worth making that point if you are looking at getting a device like this, that you can get well, not that you can get, you will get a slight shimmer on the image, but it's nothing that's a problem at all. It really isn't. And I think it was actually circumvented, that problem, on the XRGB 3, that you can actually still buy brand new now from Japan, but you've got to import them from Japan. I think they're about £270 on eBay, plus shipping charges, plus the high possibility you're going to get stung for tax and VAT when it comes in, which is a bit of, so that makes it quite expensive. But anyway, and like I said, I won't do any gameplay videos specifically to show you the comparisons, but perhaps on the next gameplay video that I do as a separate sort of video, purely on the game, I'll try and do Hartford Park actually next. It was one of the games I was going to do in the near future, and I'll probably do that, and I'll probably film it on an LCD. I may do, I may not. I may do it on the cabinet because it does look better and obviously plays better with a proper joystick and buttons and all that lot. But this is certainly the closest using this device that I would say that you're going to get to a true CRT sort of effect. And like I said, the massive bonus is the fact that you get absolutely zero lag with it. So it's definitely a device to get if you're into this kind of thing and you want the best quality image that you can get. And of course you want the zero lag to go with it, which most of the scalers will actually add lag. So yeah, hope you enjoyed the video, hope you found it interesting. If you've got any questions or anything that you want to ask about this device, XRGB, or you want to see anything specifically on it, if you want me to do a video on the video as regards to what it looks like, then I will do that. But it will be fairly difficult for you to make out the differences, I think, between the scalers, but I will do something like that if you want me to. Hope you enjoyed the video. Speak to you again soon. Thanks.